We're ready for the start. They're off.
And welcome in, everybody. A holiday cheer to you and yours. Jeremy Plonk, Jeff Siegel, with It's Official, our weekly recap show of 5 hot topics around the racing world last week. Jeff, it's hard to say it's hot when I'm looking outside my window. It's 6 inches of snow and it's about 20 degrees today. So tell me something hot on the West Coast.
It's right now. It's about 71, I think it is. Not a cloud in the sky. But better news than that is that I did check the weather for the next week or so. It's going to be beautiful here.
Good.
Theoretically, anyway, on day after Christmas, opening day at Santa Anita. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to tomorrow, too, because tomorrow is when they draw the entries for both Gulfstream and Santa Anita for their days on December 26th. Laurel, which has a fantastic card, December 26th, already has been drawn. That gives me something to do today. Dive in and do that, So it's going to be an incredible day after Christmas for horse racing fans. And like I said, I can't wait to get started and dive in tomorrow for Santa Anita and Gulfstream, because it's going to be just a glorious day of racing.
Yeah, by the time we reconvene next week, we'll already be on the 27th of December, the day after, what is going to be an absolutely huge day of racing around first racing and around the country. So can't wait for those races on the 26th. And we will have no trouble scrapping together 5 topics next week. I got a feeling. Let's get to the big board for this week. Our first of 5 topics on the board. Odds on, odds out. Everybody thought Arabian Lion was just a tap-in putt in the Los Alamitos Futurity. But what the heck happened on the way to the winner's circle? Let's go back and look at Practical Move pulling the upset. Michael Ronald with the call.
Less than a half mile to travel. Carmel Road makes play. A 1.5 length lead into the far turn from Practical Move, who rejoins Arabian Lion. They're followed by Fort Bragg being sent forward 3 wide. Getting on terms with Arabian Lion, who's just being niggled at the top of the stretch and is not travelling well. At the quarter pole, heading for home, and it's Carmel Road. Practical Move on the inside. Racing a long way clear of Fort Bragg, and Arabian Lion has dropped right back to the tail of the field at the 8th pole in the Futurity, and Practical Move on the inside takes the lead. It's Practical Move booting away from Carmel Road, followed by Fort Bragg. Practical Move in front, and Practical Move takes the Los Alamitos Futurity. Second is Carmel Road with Fort Bragg third, Tollboy fourth.
Well, it's a big day for trainer Tim Yakteen getting that victory. One of the biggest of his career on the dirt. He's had some really good turf horses over the years. And, of course, he picked up the horses for Baffert last spring upon the suspension for the Triple Crown. Yakteen may have one of his own here, Jeff, with Practical Move. Let's talk about that one first, and then we'll go back and try to figure out what happened with Arabian Lion. Your thoughts on Practical Move?
Well, this was his 5th start of the season, which is like almost a world record for a 2-year-old these days. So he had a lot of foundation. He had good seasoning behind him, and he took advantage of that. I thought it was a good race. It wasn't like eye-popping great, but it was good enough. Career top number, 88 buyer number. Nothing wrong with that in December of your 2-year-old season. And I want to point out one other thing that may be significant, and that is Los Alamitos' racetrack is usually very pro outside. The rail is dead. If you watch the races at Los Al, you'll see every rider turning in the stretch, get off the rail and try to stay off the rail. And horses that rally inside often get bogged down. So when Practical Move came through inside, I thought that might not be the where he wanted to be, but he shook that off and drew off and won with authority and did it again with a nice number. And there's nothing wrong with this race at all. It's not going to make him any favorite for the Derby, but it's going to put Tim Yakteen in the picture, who now Tim says, I'm going to give him a little bit of time off. He's had those 5 races, and we'll bring him back in, maybe March or something like that, and then we'll see how far he can carry his ability. Colt by Practical Joke, very solid. Good race. I thought it was fine, and now I know Tim's got something to work with. We'll see how much improvement Practical Move can make over the winter.
when you win at a mile and a 16th with the long stretch there, you really don't want to come back with the horse. So let's just wait for the mile and a 16th races like the San Felipe in March, which would probably make the most amount of sense. As for Arabian Lion, the heavy favorite in there, coming off the surprising defeat at Keeneland and Allowance Company when everyone thought he was an international good thing. This is not just a loss, Jeff. This is something had to be a miss, right?
Sometimes you almost, if you have a horse like this, you almost prefer to have him run last like this because you know it's not a true bill. You know, I mean, he can't be. We watched him work. We had a video of his workout last Friday. We previewed this race, and he looked terrific. Mm-hmm. Now, all of a sudden, he runs terrible. As long as he didn't bow a tendon or chip a knee or something, something internal must have happened. Maybe he bled. I don't know. But bottom line is, if he had run second and got beaten on the square like what happened at Keeneland, maybe you figure, all right, maybe he's not that genuine. He's a nice colt, but you know, he's maybe not going to be what we hoped he was. But this was so bad to believe. Right. I have to think that something happened. I haven't heard anything. I'll try to figure it out. I'll find out when I go out in the morning in the next couple of days. But when you lose a 2-5 like this, it's really deflating. I've lost a 2-5 with some of my horses, so I know how it feels. I don't know what to make of it, Jeremy. Honestly, you know, he works like a good colt. He just didn't show up for whatever reason.
Last three winners of the Los Al Futurity, Slow Down Andy, Spielberg, 1,000 Words. They were okay 3-year-olds, but not major players on the Triple Crown Trail. Might that be the result we're looking at moving forward to 2023? We'll find out in just a bit. But the time wasn't bad. The fastest in the Los Al Futurity since Improbable won it back in 2018, and he was a good horse. So we'll see what we get. Arabian Lion goes down. Practical Move on the uprise and on the uptick as you try to start your year with a list of top 10 horses. We thought Arabian Lion might be in that with a good performance on Saturday. He's obviously not. And so the names that will get churned around in January of this year will be a many, as it is most seasons. But there is not. Forte's got a great record, but I don't think anybody is like, I'm ducking the race Forte's in already. You know, it's not one of those kind of a 2-year-old going to 3-year-old type of campaigns. Let's go to our second topic this week on It's Official. Similar to what we saw at Los Alamitos, we had a big favorite upset at Remington in the Springboard Mile. It was Arabian Lion's old matchup, for his old rival, if you will, from Keeneland, Giant Mischief. But Giant Mischief, Jeff, had a little bit more of an excuse. The start was not good for him when he ended up second best in the Springboard Mile. Did Giant Mischief just blow this race at the beginning?
Yeah, for sure. And I tell you what, I got an opinion upon this too that I hadn't heard much talked about either. Not only did he blow the start, he broke in the air and then it was 5 lengths back before they even hit the first turn. But I thought Florent Giroux, when you do that at the start, I love to see jocks just take a hold. If you're going to try to make up that ground from the half-mile pole to the wire with an extended run 5 or 6 wide, you're not going to. It's just not the right thing to do. And to Giant Mischief's credit, he stayed on really nicely. But if he had just sat there and produced one run from the quarter pole to the wire and let him blast home, I think he probably could have, if not would have, won. Right. So not only did he blow the break, which wasn't the jock's fault, obviously, the horse broke in the air, but just sit and don't make that stupid premature 6 wide move. It never works, you know. And for Giant Mischief to run second in the Springboard Mile, and by the way, I want to point out, the Springboard Mile earned a 94 Beyer speed figure, 6 points better than the Grade 1 Los Al Futurity. This was a real race. But not only did Giant Mischief run second, I think he actually ran second to a pretty good colt. There was nothing wrong with the performance of the winner, who may very well be better than we give him credit for.
That is Wild Atlantic Storm. Let's go back and watch the replay. Dale Day with the call from Remington Park.
Into the turn, and Giant Mischief is 4 wide, but right there and up the rail. Here's Wild Atlantic Storm to be a big player with Echo again. Wild Atlantic Storm grabs the lead with a quarter mile to go after 6 furlongs in a minute 12.07. Wild Atlantic Storm on top now by a length and a half. Echo again chasing second. Giant Mischief third, well back to the rest. Furlong to go, and the big red horse, Wild Atlantic Storm, is clear by more than 3. Giant Mischief and Echo again chasing. Here's Wild Atlantic Storm in the final yards of the Springboard. Wild Atlantic Storm in an all-out drive will take the Springboard Mile by a length and a half. Giant Mischief rallied for second.
So we take away a good effort from the runner-up, a potentially better winner than we think. This horse was really good in the stakes races at Remington for Ray Ashford Jr. throughout the course of the season. My buddy Dale Day, who you heard on the race call there, we've been friends for 25 years. He was trying to talk me into this horse all week. He told me about the big physique and how strong and positive looking that Wild Atlantic Storm is. He picked the horse, so kudos to Dale picking the upset winner there. I would have to think Ashford, a guy who takes a lot of horses to Sunland Park during the winter, would look at the Sunland Derby with this horse. So it kind of be a home game for him that time of year. But you also have the races at Oaklawn, at fairgrounds in this part of the country, in the Mid-South, that would fit with a lot of schedules because they have 3-4 races along their series. So a lot of different ways Wild Atlantic Storm can go to get further validation of maybe distance or class. But to beat a horse like Giant Mischief, to beat a Saratoga dominant debut winner like Echo again, this was a really positive performance from the Remington-based horse. And he's got the physique and the body. I mean, this isn't rags to riches. He's a good-looking animal.
He is. They grow him big on the farm, right, in Iowa, where he was sold. But Wild Atlantic Storm, this was his first start around 2 turns. I always say, if they don't really want to run long, they will first time. And but Wild Atlantic Storm ran like a colt that will stay at least, a middle distance. I'm not sure how far he wants to run, being by Stormy Atlantic, but he'd never been worse than second in 5 career starts prior to this. He'd won over a sloppy track. He had run second on grass at Lone Star. Pretty versatile type. He'd won on the lead or run well on the lead, and now this one was off the pace a little bit. But, to me, from the 9-hole, I looked at him, and I thought he'd run well, but I was just so sold on Giant Mischief, and still am, quite frankly. And what makes this race significant is that the number came up very strong. This was not a weak edition of a $400,000 race that's listed for whatever reason. This was a stronger race than the one that we had here at Los Al. And I think both those colts are going to be nice. Wild Atlantic Storm got his early education, believe it or not, at Will Rogers Downs. That's nice. And the other colt, Giant Mischief, he's going to go back to the big leagues, I think. But and I'm not jumping off his bandwagon. I think that he's going to be really, really good. The one that I am jumping off, though, is Echo again, who I still think is a good colt. He just can't route. That's all. He's a one-turn horse, and go back to making him what he wants to be. And I think Echo again has a chance to bounce back and regain his winning form.
Steve Asmussen knows what to do with a 3-year-old sprinter, right? I mean, he's had a lot of success with those in recent years. So if he turns Echo again back to become a sprinter, you just kind of earmark those good races like the Woody Stevens and Pat Day Mile and races like that. And that's what you aim for if you have other horses to fill those Derby needs in a barn like Asmussen's. Let's go to our third topic this week. We'll stay at Remington Park. It was the 2-year-old filly feature, the Trapeze Stakes, the sister race of the Springboard Mile. Won by the favorite, as expected, Olivia Twist, and she did it up the inside.
It's Bonneview first to the top of the stretch. To the outside, that's Appropriate Funds. To the inside, Olivia Twist. Farther back, here comes a run from Demi. A furlong to go, Olivia Twist. From the inside, gets through it. Olivia Twist opens up a bit by 2, but here comes Demi rolling into second. Final yards in the Trapeze. Olivia Twist, ridden hard by Torres, will get it done. Olivia Twist on.
It wasn't a dominant victory for the favorite in there. She's now 3 for 3. She won her previous race by 15 plus, Jeff, and she had been dominant, 17 lengths margin or something like that in her first 2 starts. This was a tougher field than she had faced in that maiden and allowance race, and she graduates in style, comes up the inside professionally. I think there's a lot to like with this Todd Fincher trainee.
I really do, and what that video didn't show, if you looked at it from the quarter pole of the wire, it'd say, she got through every step of the way. But this filly was boxed in from the 7/8 pole to the top of the stretch, and she was a little bit too keen for my liking, and I wasn't really sure whether she would re-break when room developed, but she did. She won her previous start by 15 on the lead. I think she probably will be most comfortable in races in which she can establish the running. But she showed here that if she has to take dirt for like 5/8 to 3/4 of a mile, she can do it. And the buyer number of 75, not great, but it's not terrible. It was okay. Not quite as high as your last win, which was accomplished with an easy front running trip. This is a quality filly, and she's a half sister to 2 legitimate horses. So the pedigree is there. She's a half sister to Moonlight Strike, who won the Roar Stakes Gulfstream Park, but placed in the Tampa Bay Derby, and also a horse named Skippy Longstocking, who was a participant in the Triple Crown this year. I think he won the West Virginia Derby, an exaggerator, a colt who's gotten good as he gotten older. So the family is there for the son of Mishuish. And I really think Olivia Twist is going to have a really good 3-year-old season and develop nicely. If I'm Todd Fincher, I mean, I don't have to go hiding in New Mexico. I think I can go after the big girls eventually, and I think she's going to win a race or two that's going to make her one of the better ones in the division.
Well, it's interesting because the Wild Atlantic Storm for Ashford probably headed to Sunland for the winter. Fincher will have, obviously, Olivia Twist with his string at Sunland Park. Will she stay there and run in the Sunland Oaks, or does she head out of town? You got the Fantasy at Oaklawn and a good series leading up to that. You got the Fairgrounds Oaks and a good series leading up to that. Not too far to travel. So a very interesting Mid-South this year in the Oaks and Derby division based on the two winners we saw here at Remington Park. Olivia Twist taking the Trapeze Stakes, and of course Wild Atlantic Storm we saw earlier winning the Springboard Mile. Let's go to our fourth topic this week on It's Official. We're going to take a little bit of a remembrance of 2022, look back and talk about the top points of the year. Jeff, was this a good year? Was this a bad year? Or is this just another year on the calendar and we're going to rip the page off and go to 2023? What do you say?
I think it was a better than average year. Okay. I think good things happen. We had every 10 years or so, we get this Kentucky Derby that wins by a horse who may never win another race, type of race. But, that's part of the game, Jeremy, is to see these results that you can't justify, but, on your mind, how did this happen? But that's part of the game. It's fun. And that's what we saw this year. Rich Strike. We saw, we saw incredible racing from the best horse in the world. And we also saw some things happen off the racetrack that might make our game better.
Yeah, Flightline's perfection this year, running the table, going through the Met Mile, the Pacific Classic, and the Breeders' Cup Classic. Not the longest of campaigns, but one that we're going to remember for among the longest times because he was just absolutely brilliant. Let's go back and relive the Breeders' Cup Classic before we get into a few more topics. This was Flightline in his finale, looking for the showdown with Life is Good, and there wasn't much of a showdown.
They're coming to the top of the stretch. Life is Good, and Flightline hook up as they turn for home, and Flightline takes off. Flightline has gone right by Life is Good and comes into the final furlong with a 3-length lead. Life is Good trying to claim the second. Taba is third, down to the 16th pole. It is Flightline. It is mind-tingling, jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, Secretariat-like Breeders' Cup Classic win. He won it by 8 lengths on the wire. And that was Olympiad, followed by Taba, and Rich Strike was fourth. No doubt about how great he is. Flightline is awesome.
When you start tossing the S word around, Secretariat, people get a little tight in this game, especially people of a certain vintage and age. But I think this is one where it might be justified in terms of the talent. We have not seen one like Flightline. He was the peak of 2022. I mean, if you were looking for the brightest of bright spots, it doesn't get any brighter than what he did on the track.
And I'm not sure we'll see an older horse as good as him, because if you're that good, you're probably going to show it as a 2 and a 3-year-old, and you'll be gone. It was unfortunate that he wasn't able to race as a young horse in Mr. Triple Crown, but if he had, we probably wouldn't have seen what we saw this year. And I have a pretty good appreciation of Life is Good because I watched him here as a 2-year-old when Baffert had him and into his 3-year-old season, and was convinced that he was one of the better Baffert 2 turning 3s since the turn of the century, really, certainly in the level of Justify and American Pharoah. So when he got his head ripped off, I hate to put it in those terms, but that's what it looked like to me, by Flightline. And he didn't wear him down inside the 16th pole. He went by him when Life is Good still had something in the tank for him to just go on by. If you needed any more proof of greatness, that was it. And I'm not sure I'm going to see another older horse as dominant and as good as Flightline if maybe never, as far as I'm concerned. So that's what I'm going to remember this year for, the year of Flightline.
And of course, among the humans, I mean, 20 grade one wins this year for Irad Ortiz Jr. Phenomenal. But he spent as much time in Twitter purgatory of people complaining about his overly aggressive and dangerous rides. And the stewards were also reviewing a lot of video for those same things. So what was good was also controversial with Irad Ortiz. As far as the trainers go, 35 grade one wins, a third of the grade one wins this year went to Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher. They had 18 and 17 respectively, yet Chad was in the courtroom as well, and for domestic violence charges and things that he pled down on. Not like I said, for every good, there's a bad. Take a step forward, there's a step back. It just kind of felt a little bit like that year. For Todd Pletcher, it was a step forward for him this year. He had his best year in a couple. He was down. This is a horrible thing to say, but he was down to 22 million in earnings last year.
Poor guy.
Yeah. I mean, offer him some soup and a hunk of bread off the side. But he's back at 30 million this year, and to increase $8 million. I mean, that's more than a third more than he made last year with his horses. He went back to an absolutely elite level this year with his stable after. It looked like Pletcher was kind of trending downward, but he had a bounce back year. He's not had a bad year in a long time. He's never had a bad year as a trainer since I think 1999, 2000 when he took out his license on his own. Other things for me in 2022 that I'd like to bring up. We had the 80-1 shot win the Kentucky Derby. You talked about that already in Rich Strike. That was a day after the 86-year-old Wayne Lucas won the Kentucky Oaks with Secret Oath. And to me, that was one of the better moments of the year. Lucas, again, since has turned 87, I believe the first week of September. So at 86, winning the Kentucky Oaks, that's something that any year could use that kind of shot of good jolt and energy. And Lucas provided some of that. Secret Oath, she had a good year, Jeff. She just ran into a year where there was a nest in the division and the older filly division. Malathot won 3 grade ones this year. It was a really good distaff division this year, but Secret Oath had a heck of a year.
Yeah, she did. And then for me, it's special for Wayne because I met Wayne back in 1974 when I was just out of college, and he was still training quarter horses at the time. But as long as Wayne's out there saddling winners, I'm still young. And I can, because he's older than I am. And
right.
It was, I'll never forget, it was way back in the early 90s. I went to New Mexico to watch the Bruins play in the Elite Eight, it was the Elite Eight for basketball. And Indiana was there as well. So I'm in the pit in New Mexico, right. And I turn around and here's Wayne Lucas. I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, my friend Bob Knight's got the Indiana here, so I decided to come down and watch the team." And Wayne was training for me at the time. He had Star Cuisine for us, and so I said, "Well, okay, you better not sit next to me because if you do, I'm just going to grill you about my horses, and you don't want to hear that. You're here for basketball, so sit down there or somewhere else." And so I've had a history with Wayne, and it's been great. And again, when he won with Secret Oath, it keeps me young. So I'm glad for him, and I hope he can continue on for as long as he can.
Another shout out for 2022 I want to make. Beverly Park, the king of the starter allowances. Not at one venue, not at two venues, 13 tracks I counted up that this horse has run at this year. 29 starts, 14 wins for Beverly Park. Lynn Cash trains, and 14 for 29, a throwback campaign. Just won at Mahoning Valley about a week or so ago. I guess we still have a few days left in the calendar. Might get that 30 to start in yet, Jeff. But, when you win 14 races in the calendar year, the second most wins by any horse this year is 8. I mean, by almost a double factor. Beverly Park this year, 14 for 29. It's a throwback. These are the kind of horses you love to see. Obviously, just keeps on chugging and running and stays sound. And I believe the horse had 4 races under the belt before January was passed. Just a fun campaign. So for me, that's a positive. I like to see horses like Beverly Park. I was born and raised on blue collar racing. I didn't get to the big leagues of racing until I was like 21, 22 till I went to a big time racetrack. But I've been going to the bush track since I was a little kid. So for me, I like horses like Beverly Park, and that's a pretty darn good year.
You know, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I was already an expert by then. At least I thought I was, you know.
Right.
And I used to go to the pony rides, which was Beverly Hills, in where I grew up. And so I'd go over, I'd save my 25 cents or however I was earning it when I was 5 or 6 and go to the pony rides and get on the pony rides and pretend I was a jockey. And the name of the park was Beverly Park. So when you bring up Beverly Park, I have a different memory, but it's still, again, bringing you back to, to earth a little bit. And I'm thrilled that there's a horse named Beverly Park who was that popular and that good. Because Beverly Park to me I grew up more there than I did in my own house, quite frankly.
I could see a 6-year-old Siegel, all elbows and boots on some pony somewhere. Every other kid's like going around for a joyride in the yard, and you're acting like you're in the 4th at Santa Anita, probably.
Well, I asked the owner of the pony rides, where do I claim foul here? You know, where do I talk to the stewards? Because what we used to do is we used to match up the pony. Now the ponies they would do nothing more than a trot, but not for me. I mean, I was down. I knew where to sit back and make a run. So I was 6. Not 6, 5 or 6. Beverly Park.
As for the downside for 2022, got to keep it real here. Look, the struggles of the Interstate Horse Racing Act, HISA, got instituted, then kind of got their legs cut out from underneath them in some of the legal challenges. And right now, as we kind of turn to 2023, the future of that Interstate Racing Act is really in jeopardy at this point. Will we ever see a national governing body with any teeth that could make any kind of real influence in horse racing, Jeff? This year was a step forward and then a step back, which just seems to be the theme of this year.
Yeah, that's what it is. I hope so. Anything that will make this game better and fairer and cleaner is good as far as I'm concerned. And of course, we were made well aware of that in the courts this year.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I think that was a good thing. You might say it's a black eye in horse racing, but you got to look forward and anything that will do to prevent people who will try to cheat, and I'm sure they'll continue to try, but anything that will do to maybe do something that will have people think twice about it is good. We found out about that this year with Mr. Service and others and Mr. Navarro, and maybe it'll be an inducement to not cheat. I don't know. I hope so.
Right. The 2 major high-profile trainers from South Florida and the East Coast, Jason Service, Jorge Navarro, will spend 2023, part of it, in prison for their involvement in horse doping and lying to the FBI and being caught on surveillance and all the things that went into that investigation and what turned out to be a guilty plea from Service just a couple weeks ago. So, will that help clean the game up? I mean, look, those guys are out of the game now, so that's a positive. Just taking them off the battlefield, the playing field, for sure. But the bigger gain could be, like you said, people seeing that and thinking twice, 3 times, 4 times about trying to take an edge. That might be the best deterrent that we have is heavy-handed justice. And certainly those guys going to prison is about as heavy as it can get for the violations that went down. Let's talk our 5th topic as we do each week on It's Official. We're going to wrap it up with our Stars of Tomorrow segment. We're always looking on the both coasts, in the middle of the country, in the South, for up-and-coming maiden winners or 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds who are about ready to become household names. We've got one named Tappet Trice from Aqueduct last weekend.
Off the turn into the stretch. Slip Mahoney. On the outside is Tappet Trice. Tappet Trice and Slip Mahoney. Summer Cause back running in 3rd. Mercanti is in 4th. It is Slip Mahoney and Tappet Trice, and they are shoulder to shoulder here with a 16th to the finish. Slip Mahoney on the inside. Tappet Trice on the outside. The 2 of them will battle it out to the finish. Tappet Trice got it done by a head. Slip Mahoney was 2nd and farther back. Summer Cause finished 3rd.
Well, thank goodness for that one. It saved Todd Pletcher for the season, right?
Yeah.
Jeff? He needed a boost. He's got another one with the $1.3 million purchase. Tappet Trice, second-time winner. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a nicely bred colt for sure. Obviously, he's Tappet, but to bring that kind of money as a yearling, Tappet or no Tappet, it means he has to be a very good-looking colt. His dam was a winner, a stakes winner, won the Iowa Distaff in her day, and ran kind of off the beaten path, but still made $300,000. This is the second foal. She herself, a half sister to Jaywalk, of course, won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So there's the family's there, and Tappet. And what we didn't show in that video was the start of the race, where he walked out of the gate and spotted the field 5 or 6 lengths, and then was able to circle the pack and get up in time. He does look like a colt that'll run him like 3 miles. I mean, he's got a nice way of going, but he doesn't have quick action. So if you want to take a future book bet for maybe the Belmont, there it is. But he's also kind of laid back in green. I don't think the light switch has gone on yet. Right. Curious to see what Todd does, whether he leaves him in New York or he brings him down to South Florida. I wouldn't be surprised if he left him where he was, and that might be where he would have the best chance, as opposed to trying to perform at Gulfstream Park with a shorter stretch and a little quicker and faster horses. But I think he's a good colt. I really do. And I think you're going to find that he'll mature. He'll mentally mature. And the longer the distance, he ran well in his first start. And I think he's going to get nothing but better. This is just a maiden race, but there's not a question in my mind that he'll be running in stakes races during the winter. And I think he's got a chance to move up and be somebody pretty good.
And Todd's not averse to taking one to Tampa either over the course of the winter to see. You don't get to go further than a mile and 16th at Tampa. That might be the only setback for a horse that you think long distance and more of a grinding type. You only get the mile and 16th races in the Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby there, but might fit well on class and caliber for that kind of running style against that sort of competition. We'll see where Tappet Trice ends up next. That wraps up our 5 topics. We typically have a bonus topic, some weeks a little irreverent. This week, we're going to keep it serious because we've got such good racing coming up on December the 26th. It's a 26th of December to remember, we're calling it, with First. And what a fabulous card we're going to have at Santa Anita with the 6 graded stakes races. Opening day card will be drawn on Wednesday, as Jeff mentioned. At Gulfstream Park, it's opening day for the championship meet, where the Tropical Park Derby and Tropical Park Oaks will be the features. At Laurel Park, 6 stakes races, all 100 granders, good field sizes for what they call the Christmastide Day Stakes. That coming up on Monday. Those fields are already out, so we can get to work on handicapping those. And at Fairgrounds, they've got to kick off to the Kentucky Derby and Oaks program there. Gunrunner Stakes featured with $100,000 stakes up and down the menu at Fairgrounds as well. So what a fabulous day we've got Monday, Jeff. Very little racing on the 24th. We will have Gulfstream Park on Saturday and Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday. No thoroughbred racing on Christmas Day. If you want to bet, though, there's still some action. You can get French harness in the morning, Japan, Korea. There's a bunch of international racing on Christmas that you can take part of with First and Express Bet. But really the focus now for us as we get to the end of this week and into the weekend, enjoy the family time and the holidays, but get to work on these 26th races because what a fabulous trio of cars we got across First Racing. Can't wait to get started. And you mentioned Korea. I gotta check my Korean figs to make sure that I'm like, yay, it's racing. I want to build my bankroll for opening day at Santa Anita and Gulfstream. And again, entries for those 2 tracks drawn tomorrow for next Monday. So I will be diving in, and we'll have all of our selections analysis for our Express Bet customers, and we'll have that online maybe Sunday night, and then hopefully we'll all make money together. All right. We look forward to that on December 26th. Between now and then, though, folks, find somebody you love, spend some time with them, enjoy the holiday season, and good tidings as we head through Christmas on Sunday and then into what really is it's the 26th of December, but it's opening day for 2023, right? I mean, this is where the new year in racing gets started every year on the 26th. I'll start my analysis on Countdown to the Crown, beginning with the races of the 26th, and then first Friday in January, as I do each year. This now being the 18th season, I'll have Countdown to the Crown for you at Horse Player Now each week. So a lot of things to look forward to this time of year, Jeff. And final thoughts as we head out for the holidays.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everybody. Be safe and sound, as you mentioned. Enjoy your family and spend a good weekend with them, and then dive in.
Let's do it. On behalf of everybody across First and my partner, Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Merry Christmas. We'll talk to you next week on the 27th.